we can go.
All right, welcome everybody to a special board meeting, May 20th, 2020. It is about 5:32 p.m. Brennan, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. King?
Here.
Ms. Reese?
Present.
Ms. Sebastian?
Here.
Mr. Elam?
Here.
Ms. Mansfield?
Here.
All right, next up is treasurer's items requesting board action. Brendan.
All right, let me get to the presentation. Can everybody see it?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so first off, I'd like to say thanks for having a special meeting. This is probably one of the hardest things I've had to do in my profession, doing with the current situation. As I said before, I'm more of a conservative when it's doing these 5-year forecasts. I'm even more conservative right now with the current situation. So we'll go through. If you have any questions, just let me know at any time. So just first to reiterate the purposes of a 5-year forecast. It helps with long-range planning and discussion of financial issues for the district. Also helps with preparing 412 certificates. And it also provides a method for the outer state and education to see schools with potential financial issues. So for every district is a little different to lay out for Bethel local schools. The current streams of revenue are real estate. Those are the 4 big ones: are real estate, income tax, state funding, which comes from the foundation receipts, and then all other revenue. The big one is TIF. We also have interest and rental income. Expenditures, these are pretty the same throughout every school district. Salary and benefits are going to be your top 2, with purchase services, supplies and materials, and capital outlay. Currently for this fiscal year, also remember a fiscal year for a school district is July 1st through June 30th. This is the breakout of revenues for the school district. One of the hardest things to do right now, obviously with things up in the air, is to predict not just for next year, but the future years. We did receive some info about state funding for this year. We don't know what's going to happen for next year. Real estate, as you look, is 25%. They have delayed, I believe, the collection, or they are looking at delaying the second half collection of property taxes. Income tax the filing has been delayed by 3 months till July 15th. So that could delay collection and successive quarters. And then all other revenue, that's the TIF, also, which even though it's not technically property taxes, also kind of goes hand in hand with real estate taxes, and then state funding, which is 37%. So what the assumptions are for next year and the next, because 5-year forecasts, and for the next 5 years, we had our emergency levy passed in November 2018. We also have an operating levy that will eventually need to be renewed either next calendar year or the following calendar year, as it expires in December of 2022. This past calendar year of 2019, the county itself had a reappraisal where it saw for our district alone, residential values went up by 13% and ag values declined by 11% due to House Bill 49 on how CAUVs were determined. This ultimately shifted the tax burden from ag taxpayers to residential taxpayers, but should not result in lower taxes in the district. One thing to note is House Bill 920 prevents a school district from realizing additional revenue from increase in market value of real property. However, a school district cannot fall below what's considered the 20 mil floor for current expense millage, inside or outside. After the reappraisal, we are pretty much at the 20 mil floor. Most likely the next update or the next, any new construction, which we will have seen in certain areas of the district that will be added onto our tax roll, will most likely put us to the 20 mil floor, which means we can't go any lower. So any additions to any improvements or any new construction not related to carriage trails that is added on their tax roll, in essence, will be additional income for the school. Due to the current situation and just reading through things, currently we collect about at a 98% tax rate. The county auditor is related to all tax bills that we have within our district. With the current situation, I am estimating about 90% collection for next school year or next fiscal year 21, and then hopefully go back to normalcy down the road in fiscal year 22 going forward. It's a unique thing to try to predict. Talking to the developer, they're still building houses, they're still selling lots. They just bought another big acreage and looking to build more. So I don't think our school district is going to have as an impact related to delinquencies as many other school districts. So hopefully I'll know more when if the next tax payment, which is usually due in July and we receive in August. But if they do delay, the required payment, it's just going to be a timing issue. So that's one thing to monitor. But at this time, I think we're okay. Income tax is the next big revenue that we receive. We passed the levy back in November. Revenue is about 13 to 14%. I curbed down the growth. It's been averaging about 8% increase. For the next 2 fiscal years, I curbed it down to 3 to 4%. Again, I think, with that big development, houses are getting bought, lots are getting bought. I don't think we're going to see, me personally, I don't know what to expect, but I don't see a big effect on us again with that development. And also, we're not a traditional income tax; we're only earned income. So I think that's another benefit for us, is that we're only income taxes related to the earned income and not just any income that a taxpayer would get. Obviously, we'll know more in the next payment in July and in the fall, and then most likely I'll have a better understanding of how this current situation is affecting it. But based off the last, collection we had, we came in 4% above what was projected for the quarter. So as of right now, I curbed it down a little bit just to be consistent. But as of right now, I just don't see it declining at all.
Brennan, can I jump in with a question?
Sure.
On the income tax, since the tax date was delayed from April to July, is that also going to shift when we receive the bulk of our income tax money? Because isn't July usually the big revenue?
July and April are usually the 2 big ones. So it could affect it to where we see a decrease in July, but then an increase in October's payment.
Okay.
Really, it's going to be, again, a timing issue related to this receipt. We might not get it when we get it.
But you're expecting all the revenue from the previous year to come in because it's
right.
It's just, Okay.
It's
All
like
right. Thank you.
Timing from collecting to when they disperse it. The big one, school funding. Obviously, we were one of the, I got to sit in on a conference call with all the treasurers Thursday and got an understanding of how they calculated the budget cut for schools. It's a very unique criteria. We were actually the lowest per pupil cut. We were cut $89 per pupil, which equates to about about $134,000. Yes, that's bad, but it could have been worse. We're already losing money, we know, because we were a cap district in previous years. But we were very fortunate. For fiscal year 21 next year, I have it as the same amount right now because we're a growing school district. We're seeing additional kids come in. I don't like to project on rumors. I think it's a big, my philosophy is I only project what I know or what could happen. I know there's rumors, more budget cuts, but, we're in a good financial position right now and with this current cut that we have, I don't know if they use the same philosophy, we'll be one of the lower pupils because they've already cut half of our funding anyways from them. So as of right now, I just have it as of what we've received or to be received requests for fiscal year 20. I have that as related to fiscal year 21. Another thing to also consider is the federal government did pass what's called the CARES Act. The state of Ohio did get $489 million. 90% went to local agencies. We are to receive about $52,000 related to that. Once the state has filed the application and the funds are available, I plan to look at how we can utilize that. The time frame, they're backdating it, I believe, to March to all the way to September of 2022 to use these funds. So I'll probably work with Justin to see what area we would want to use those for to help out the district. So if you look at it, if you want to do a net, we get 52 back from the feds and we lost 134. We net lost 82K, which, to be frank, is very fortunate. I think we could have been where a lot of other schools are having a bigger impact related to the cuts than we are. So we're very fortunate with that. And then the last one is all other revenue. The TIF payment's the big one here. This year it generated about 2.1 million. 30% of that is actually in the capital projects fund. We just got our homestead and rollback payment. So as of right now in the capital projects, there's about a little over $1.9 million in there. So that's kudos to the board for passing that resolution and putting that money aside for future capital projects. So I think we're prepared for when we're ready to go with the master facility plan to start and running. So projected growth is 15%. I will let you know that between last fiscal year and this fiscal year, the overall receipt related to the TIF payment grew by 20%. And at first I did 15 to 20, but not knowing the houses sold and how many applicants getting in, 15 seems to be a good, safe number right now. And with this current situation, I still have that as anticipated for the next 3 years. As the developer said, he has about 2 to 3 more years of building, and then eventually it's going to plateau out. And then, whatever he decides with the other acres that have been bought, will also impact the future forecast as well. And then here's the breakout of expenditures for this fiscal year. Like I said, your big three are going to be salaries, benefits, and then purchase services. Purchase services, just remember, are a little higher for us than most school districts, as we have additional more staff through the ESC than other schools do. I know one thing that Justin and I have been looking at in the future is, possibly seeing if bringing any of those positions back as employees of the district or employees of the ESC. So that's one thing that we'll be looking at to do. So that would fluctuate just where you're classifying them at. So that's the breakout. So those are really, any school district, if they, when there's budget cuts and, if you don't have the revenues, really the areas that you have to look at is salary, benefits, and purchase services. Those are the only ones where you can make, if the district had to do any cuts, those are the only areas where you could do cuts that could help, get to where you need to go. But as of right now, we're looking pretty good.
Battery, quick question for you.
Yes.
I don't have the number in front of me, but just, I guess for a reminder for the group, what's the current dollar amount we spend per year in just administrative fees, which I'm assuming is payroll documentation and that kind of stuff for our ESC employees?
Let me bring that up real quick. I have it on here. I believe it is, I don't have it. Oh, there it is. It is about $38,000 is what we pay in admin fees to the ESC for the employees that they provide us.
And Justin, can you clarify your point? What was your point in pointing that out?
My point would be that if we employ them on our own district, we won't spend $38,000 a year to the ESC, that we have personnel that can handle payroll and those kind of things. So this district employs a larger number of ESC employees that I'm used to. I'm used to usually it being aides. We get a lot of teachers from there and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But
I think the
obviously,
benefits.
we would have conversations with those folks to see if they'd be willing, if it's financially feasible. You got to take a look at a lot of different things before you just go and make that decision. But $38,000 a year times X number of years just in administrative fees is a large amount of money.
Yeah, but you may want to check the benefits, because I think there's a difference between hired staff to Bethel and ESC employees that may offset the cost.
Yeah, that would definitely, we're going to look at all factors, but I'm just asking so people realize, because that number is probably 15 to 18% higher than I'm used to seeing.
So expenditures, first one, personnel service, staffing, for fiscal year 20, we hired 6 additional teachers, a school counselor, and a bus driver. We're projected for next year to hire 5 certified staff, 1 classified staff, 1 aide, and 1 bus driver. And then for each fiscal year after that, projected to hire 4 certified staff, 1 aide, and 1 bus driver. Also keep in mind, it used to be, I had always projected 4, but last year we went from 4 to 7. As we get numbers in enrollment, we're currently going from 4 to 5, projected for additional staff for next year as well. So it's one of the hardest things to do is project your staff when your enrollment is gradually increasing. So just keep that in mind. But that's talking to Mr. Ferks and the administration. We're very comfortable with those projections for next year. Also, the district brought back in-house the custodians. We hired 5 in January 2020. The last board meeting, we hired our 6th custodian that will start in June. So beginning in fiscal year 21, going forward, those are not used to be under purchase services. As through the purchase service contract we have, those will now be reported in salary and benefits. Benefits increase to additional staff is one of them. Obviously, our health insurance rates went up 17% this current year, which was a 3 times as much increase that the school district has experienced in the last 6 years average, as they only went up about 5%. Due to the significant increase, we are projecting 7.5% for fiscal year 21 and currently 10% increase for fiscal year 22 to 24. Dental and vision rates remain the same in fiscal year 20, However, we are anticipating a 2% increase for fiscal years 21 through 2024. Purchase services, majority of your cost here are purchase services through the ESC, utilities, repairs, maintenance, and legal services. Projected to increase each year due to increasing enrollment, staff, and operational needs. Supplies and materials expected to decrease due to staff increase and enrollment increase. We did not adopt a new textbook this year. However, I believe in June, the board will be presented to adopt a new English adoption, as well as we have been buying additional books sporadically throughout the grade levels, depending on class sizes. So that's where you'll see in the detail of the 5-year forecast, the fluctuation from this year to next year, why the increase. Capital outlay, majority here is instructional Chromebooks for students, teachers, and staff. We do also keep in mind, we do have 2 permanent improvement levies that generate about $513,000 that are used for capital projects and improvements. The rule of thumb is for any PI money, the useful life needs to be for 5 years or greater. So for PI, we usually use it for buses, furniture, big purchase furniture, our copier leases, our land payment, items like that. So depending on what's finalized in the master facility plan, we could see additional costs to accommodate those immediate needs. One thing to note is the board will see next month, we did approve the agreement for the modular. That lease payment will be in the general fund, and it will be under purchase service because it's a rental and per accounting codes for school financing. So you guys will see that as well. So just keep that in mind. So the 5-year forecast outlook, based off of what was presented, 2 things to look at is the overall ending balance after revenues and expenditures. With all the levies that we currently have, this is the projected ending fund balance for the general and emergency fund balance at the end of each fiscal year. This does not include encumbrances, encumbrances are where you have POs in place where you expect the cost, but you haven't received the invoice or goods or service to be paid for yet. Another thing to keep in mind is if ending balance without the levies, that's representing if the operating levy that needs to be renewed by December 2022 is not renewed, and the revenue that would be lost is the difference between the ending balance above and the ending balance below. So one thing to look at when you're looking at the financial sound and strength of a school district is their ending fund balance. One area to look at is true cash days. GFOA always recommends 2 months or 60 days. The board passed a district cash balance policy that they would use that as a guide, not making a requirement, but use it as a basis to measure where the district stands. You take the average, your total expenditures, you divide it by 365 days, and then you divide that by your ending balance to give you the true cash days. So based off of everything and the input, at the end of this fiscal year, projecting 113 true days, but as you see, we are deficit spending through the next 4 years. Like I said, I'm more of a conservative. So, and also it's the timing of the revenues. We don't know really our 4 big revenues, 3 of them are in loop right now. We don't know the true effect until the next 5 months. So it's something to look at. However, right now, I think we are financially sound and good. One thing to keep in mind though is if money or funds are cut more than expected, the school would have to look at how to manage that. Besides doing cuts to expenditures, the district does put 30% of that TIF money into capital projects. So as I said before in the facility meetings, The only way we could do a building project is if all the revenue streams are maintained. So that's one of the things to keep an eye on, because that could affect our borrowing rate. Because if you don't have an operating budget, it doesn't make sense to build something when you can't pay for it. With that, so things to watch out for the next next year. Obviously, the operation levy, when to go for renewal for it, 2021 or 2022. State budget, is there any additional cuts? The biennial budget does come up next spring, summer. Are they going to address the foundation formula? After this, I would say most likely the formula will not be adjusted. Student enrollment growth, facilities, the master facility plan, the TIF revenue, just keeping an eye on that, and then any other economic developments within the school district. And with that, do I have any questions?
Brandon, this is Jacob. I have 2 questions. So the first one is will we be able to update the 5-year forecast if we receive additional information with regards to additional cuts or a significant decline in funding?
You would only be able to update it unless that House bill is passed. You would be updated it in May, or not May, November.
Okay. And then the second question was regards to the forecasted personnel hirings.
Yes.
So in the past, I saw that we had talked a lot about the teachers and the classified staff there. But do we know when we're possibly, and this may be for Justin, considering adding additional support for the high school, middle school, with regards to, I don't know if it's an assistant principal, a dean of students, something to that effect to assist those 2 principals with that large student load?
I have not had any conversations. That's not in the budget per se. I haven't had any conversations with administration on that. So that would be my 2 cents. I know it's something before Justin got here, the district was looking at. I mean, it's something we could talk about and see if feasible for the next forecast, but I don't know what the administration's current view is on that.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
I have a question for you, Brennan. This is Julie.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. So the insurance increase had a trend of 17%, then 7.5%, 10%, and then it went to 2%. Why is the 2%? It seems kind of low. So can you just explain, is it just because it's so far out, or?
The 2% is just for dental and vision.
Okay.
The 10% is going to be every year for health.
Okay. Gotcha. And then my other question is, if we build this new building and it's up and running in 3 years, do the operating costs of that building get figured into the 5-year forecast?
They will. I have included a little curve for that, just anticipating on what the additional cost would be. But at this time, it's really too hard to project. But some of the costs, utility-wise, are included in this as if we would have another building.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Brennan, I just had a couple follow-up questions. If you had the chance, I had emailed you earlier today. Did you have the chance to look into the all of the revenues and looking at my email, sorry. And the property tax allocation? Actually, it was property tax payments. I'm sorry, it was property tax payments, and then
Is that yeah, so property tax allocations, I didn't affect anything because those are the state payments. Um, let me see what your question is.
Yeah, you just showed a pretty good uptick in property tax allocation for fiscal year 2021. So I just wanted to make sure what that was. And it may have, you said something about it may have been because of the reappraisal.
Yeah, so when we have a reappraisal, any inside millage we would gain, however, outside millage we would not gain. So those are related to the levies that were in place at the time before November 2013 when they got rid of the homestead rollback tax credit from the state. So it most likely, I would have to look, it's a calculation in the Excel file for our 5-year forecast, but most likely it's going to be related to the inside millage increase related to those credits.
Okay. And then we'll see how like the property tax and income tax and all that, you'll have a better idea by November, December, how that's going to all play out, hopefully.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Well, because I mean, my only concern is, and I think this should be noted somewhere in the minutes, that if the state reduces our funds 10 to 20%, our 5-year forecast doesn't really reflect that right now, correct?
Correct.
So I think it should be noted in the minutes. I mean, I'm fine with what you've presented here, but I also think you've made some assumptions that people just need to be aware of.
And like I said, and I'll say again, I don't project on rumors. So, you know, it's just a rumor. And I know some treasurers are, and that's their personal preference. But, you know, at the first, when they were going to cut budget, we were going to lose a lot more than 134,000, and we didn't. So it's kind of hard to project. That's why they're trying to introduce that bill to delay it to December for the next 5-year forecast, because 90% of every school district's revenues they can't project right now because they don't know.
Yeah.
It's a rumor right now, so that's why I kept it the same and not decreased it, because, you know, most likely I hope he dips in the rainy day fund, because I mean, school districts are the #1 state budget, you know, and the budget. So
well, and it's not really a rumor though when the governor comes on the television and says 20% cut flat across the board for next year. Now he may dip into that rainy day fund. I'd forgotten that. Jacob, have you heard anything further?
No, but one of the things that I think in line with what Brennan was saying is, although he said 20% cuts across the board, it's really until we actually see it, we'll actually be able to identify where he was thinking of laying that in. So that, and other avenues could make up for what that 20% could be. It could be 10% for schools, and, you know, and a different percentage for the state government offices to other supported entities by the state.
plus the current cut, they didn't do the same across the board. They did it by per pupil based off of some statistics. I have the detail, but we were the lowest cost per pupil. So, you know, I get it, but at the same time, you know, I think this is the worst case scenario to me. I mean, eventually I think things are going to get back, but he's going to have to figure something out, because if he cuts it again, you know, a lot of school districts aren't going to be able to survive. So that's my thing, is like looking at other school districts. Well, he ain't going to be able to do it because then you're going to have a lot of school districts that aren't going to be able to support what they have. So
I would agree. You know, you look at Miami County, obviously Bethel has been stated before was the lowest, you know, not to bring up individual school districts, but I couldn't imagine being Pickwick City and losing $500,000. So, you know, districts like that, you take another hit, and you know, then you're cutting the entire staff, and how's that going to work? So he's going to have to take a hard look at the budget and not necessarily just target school systems.
Well, and right now, I think where the budget sits, and because of Brennan and your careful management, I think we are sitting in a good place. Not that we want money removed from our budget, but to absorb that for a single year. I mean, there were times in our history where a $500,000 cut to our budget would have, been completely devastating, but there is just a small cushion there now, which we're very, very thankful for.
Do I have any other questions?
No, I mean, I read your full report, and other questions have been asked that addressed everything that I had. My other concerns are related to things that are complete and utter unknowns, and I'm just not even going to get into those here. So no point.
Yeah, it's an eager. This is probably the toughest 5-year forecast any treasurer's had to do for any school district. When 90% of your revenue, you don't know what's going to happen in 6 months. It's, you got to be cautious, but I get being cautious, but at the same time, a lot of school districts can't take a additional cut in state funding next year because that's their biggest number one resource. So it's going to be interesting, but like I said, Justin and I, with administration and the board and everything, we've done our due diligence and been sound financially, and so we're able to take these little hits and keep on going. So, but it's going to be interesting the next 6 months. So I'm a little nervous, but at the same time, just talking to other treasurers, we talked to the developer after this started going on, and just getting the sense from the city of Heber Heights too, and their economic development, like things on that side aren't slowing down. So so that's where to be optimistic right now. So
Brennan, thanks for putting this together early the way that you have.
I appreciate it, and like I said, it's one of the things I actually do enjoy putting together. But it should be interesting. I never thought as a treasurer I'd have to face this, but it's interesting.
And Brennan, thank you for going back and updating things this past week or two. I know that was a lot of extra work, so I really appreciate you revising some of the figures based on more current information.
You're welcome. Let me get back the agenda if I can find it on here. There we go.
Thank you, Brennan, for that great presentation. It's very easy to understand. At this time, we'll ask for a motion to place the item from the treasurer's report on the consent calendar for action. We have a motion.
I'll make the motion. Julie.
Thank you, Julie. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Lori. Any discussion? Brendan, could you call the roll, please?
Ms. Reese,
Yes.
Ms. Sebastian,
Yes.
Ms. Mansfield,
Yes.
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Mr. King.
Yes. Next will be a motion to adopt the consent calendar with the item for action. Do we have a motion? Thank you, Lida, for the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Danny, for the second. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none. Brennan, could you call the roll, please?
Ms. Mansfield,
Yes.
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Ms. Sebastian,
Yes.
Ms. Reese,
Yes.
Mr. King.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Brennan. Next is the superintendent's items requesting board action.
Have one item for this evening. It's listed above. Board of Education approve the resignation of the following employees: James Chapman, Maintenance Supervisor, effective July 31st, 2020.
All right. Motion to place the item from the superintendent's report to the consent calendar.
I'll make the motion. Julie.
Thank you, Julie, for the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Danny, for the second. Any discussion? Brennan, could you call the roll, please?
Ms. Reese,
Yes.
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Ms. Mansfield,
Yes.
Ms. Sebastian.
Yes.
Next, we'll have a motion to adopt the consent calendar with the item from the superintendent's report.
I'll move.
Thank you, Lyda. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Lori, for the second. Any discussion? All right. Brennan, could you call the roll, please, sir?
Ms. Mansfield,
Yes.
Ms. Sebastian,
Yes.
Ms. Reese,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Elam.
Yes.
All right, with no other further business stated for the intent of this meeting. Next would be a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll move.
Thank you, Danny. for
I'll
the-
second.
Thank you, Julie, for the second. Is there any discussion? I would say on behalf of the board, we're extremely happy with the presentation that Brennan put together for us tonight. So thank you. Easily understood and fiscally sound 5-year forecast for everything that we know at this point. So thank you for that. Any other discussion points?
Ditto from Julie.
Okay, thank you, Julie. And Brennan, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Ms. Reese,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Ms. Sebastian,
Yes.
Ms. Mansfield.
Yes.
All right, meeting adjourned at 6:14 p.m. Thank you all for changing your schedules for this meeting. And Brennan, thank you for not only providing the report, but driving the meeting for us. So thank you.